The emergency signal came through space like a scream. Commander Taeho was drinking his morning coffee on the bridge of the Earthship Indomitable when the communication officer called out an alarm. "Sir, we're getting a wide-band transmission. It's from the Galactic Council." Taeho nearly dropped his cup. The Galactic Council had never contacted Earth directly. For 50 years, they had treated humans like dangerous animals who should stay in their own corner of space. Earth was a death world to them, too violent, too unpredictable, too savage for civilized company. "Put it through," Taeho said. The main screen filled with the image of a being made of living crystal. Its body was tall and thin, glowing with soft blue light. This was a Velothi, one of the most peaceful species in the galaxy. But this one looked terrified. "This is Elder Silnara of the Velothi Collective," the being said in perfect English. We are dying. Our worlds are being consumed. We have nowhere else to turn." The crystal being's voice cracked with desperation. Behind it, Taeho could see the beautiful crystal cities of the Velothi homeworld. But something was wrong. Parts of the city were missing, leaving dark scars across the landscape. "We call upon any who can hear this message. The Devourers have come. They take everything. They learn from everything. Our shields cannot stop them. Our weapons only make them stronger." Captain So-Jin, Taeho's second-in-command, moved to stand beside him. She was young but brilliant, the best tactical mind in the Earth fleet. Her face was grim as she watched the transmission. The Altarians fell first. The Velothi continued. Their great war fleets were turned to metal dust in hours. The hegemony tried to fight with their planet killers. The machines absorbed the energy and grew larger. The Confederation attempted to negotiate. The Devourers do not talk. They only consume. The image shook as explosions rocked the Crystal City. Through the transmission, they could hear the sound of screaming and the terrible grinding noise of massive machines. "We have perhaps 3 days before Lumina Prime falls. After that, the path to the inner systems will be open. Billions will die. Please, anyone who receives this, help us." The transmission cut to static. The bridge was silent for a long moment. Taeho stared at the empty screen, his mind racing. The Galactic Council had 12 major species and hundreds of minor ones. Their combined fleets numbered in the tens of thousands. If they couldn't stop these Devourers, what could Earth do with its few hundred ships? "Sir?" So-Jin said quietly. "Your orders?" Taeho looked around the bridge at his crew. These were good people, engineers, pilots, gunners who had signed up to protect Earth and her colonies. Most had never even seen an alien before. Now they were being asked to fly into the unknown to save people who had treated them like monsters. "Communications, get me Admiral Kyung-soo on Mars," Taeho said. "Priority channel." The old admiral's weathered face appeared on screen within minutes. Admiral Kyung-soo had fought in the Mars colony wars 20 years ago, back when humans were still fighting each other instead of thinking about the stars. His gray hair and scars told the story of someone who had seen too much war. "I saw the transmission, Commander," Kyung-soo said before Taeho could speak. "The whole fleet did." "What's your assessment?" "These Devourers sound like nothing we've faced before, sir. Self-replicating machines that adapt to every weapon used against them. If they've beaten the entire Galactic Council, then they haven't met humans yet," the Admiral finished. "Commander, I'm giving you command of Task Force 7. Every available ship. How long do you need to prepare?" Taeho looked at So-Jin. She was already pulling up fleet readiness reports on her tablet, her fingers moving quickly across the screen. 72 hours, sir," So-Jin said. "If we push the maintenance crews to their limits." "You have it," Kyung-soo said. "And Commander, the Velothi aren't the only ones watching this transmission. Every species in the galaxy will see what humanity does next. Don't let them down." The screen went dark. Taeho turned to his crew, who were all looking at him with a mixture of fear and determination. These people had families back on Earth. They had every reason to stay safe and let the aliens handle their own problems. "All hands, this is the captain," Taeho said into the ship's communication system. "By now, you've all heard the transmission from the Velothi. In 72 hours, we're going to jump into hostile space to fight an enemy that has destroyed every fleet sent against it. I won't lie to you. Many of us might not come home." He paused, looking out at the stars through the bridge windows. "But here's what I know about humans. We don't abandon people who ask for our help. We don't run from a fight just because the odds are bad, and we sure as hell don't let bullies destroy innocent people while we watch." Across the ship, he could hear crew members cheering. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Mi Young was already shouting orders to her team. In the fighter bay, Lieutenant Dongwu was preparing his squadron of pilots. These people weren't thinking about glory or politics. They were thinking about scared crystal beings calling for help in the dark. Sojin was coordinating with other ships in the fleet. On her screen, Taeho could see dozens of Earth vessels changing course toward the rally point near Jupiter. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, every ship that could fight was answering the call. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're getting messages from the colonies. Luna Base is sending their defense fleet. The Mars orbital stations are releasing their patrol squadrons. Even the mining ships from the belt are volunteering to help." Taeho smiled grimly. This was humanity at its best. Not the savage Deathworlders the aliens feared, but people who couldn't stand by and watch others suffer. "And sir," the officer continued, "we're getting something else. Reports from alien refugees fleeing the Devourer advance. They're sending us tactical data, ship designs, everything they can about the enemy." "Even though their own governments treat us like animals?" Sojin asked. "The people are different from their leaders," Taeho said. "They're scared and desperate, and they know we're their last hope." Over the next 3 days, the human fleet grew beyond anything Earth had ever assembled. 847 ships, from massive dreadnoughts to tiny scout vessels. Dr. Yoonhee, the fleet's chief scientist, worked around the clock analyzing the alien data about the Devourers. "They're machines, but not like any AI we've developed," she reported to the command staff. "They don't just adapt, they evolve. Every time they encounter a new weapon or tactic, they learn from it and share that knowledge with the entire swarm." "So conventional warfare is useless," Sojin observed. "Conventional alien warfare," Taeho corrected. "But we're not aliens, are we?" As the fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Taeho received one last transmission from Earth. It was from his daughter Mei-ri, who was studying at the university in Seoul. "Dad," she said, her young face serious but proud, "I know you have to go. I know you might not come back. But I also know you're doing the right thing. Show them what humans are really made of." Taeho closed the transmission and looked around. The bridge one final time. His crew was ready. The fleet was ready. In a few hours they would face an enemy that had destroyed civilizations older than human written history. "All ships, this is Commander Taeho," he said into the fleet communications. "Jump in 3, 2, 1, mark." The stars stretched into lines of light and humanity went to war. The first human ships hit the Devourer formation like meteors falling from heaven. What followed was unlike any battle the galaxy had ever seen. The Devourers had adapted to thousands of years of civilized warfare. They knew how to counter energy, weapons, kinetic shells, and plasma torpedoes. Their armor shifted and changed to deflect every known type of attack. But they had never encountered an enemy that used garbage trucks as weapons. Commander Mi Young, chief engineer of the heavy cruiser Seoul's Pride, had stripped every non-essential system from her ship and replaced them with mining equipment. When the Devourers adapted to her ship's energy weapons, she simply rammed straight through their formation, while her crew used industrial plasma cutters to slice through enemy hulls like hot knives through butter. "This is insane!" shouted her second-in-command as the ship shook from enemy fire. "We're using construction tools against military hardware." "These machines think like computers," Mi Young replied calmly, guiding her ship between two massive Devourers. "Computers can't understand why anyone would use a welding torch as a weapon, but humans have been turning tools into weapons since we picked up the first rock." The Devourers tried to adapt to the plasma cutters by reinforcing their armor, so Mi Young's team switched to explosive mining charges, blowing holes in enemy hulls from the inside. When the machines adapted to that, the humans used magnetic grapples meant for asteroid mining to tear the Devourers apart piece by piece. Major Jin Woo was having even more success with his boarding parties. The Marines had abandoned their military weapons in favor of whatever they could find in the ship's maintenance bays. They cut through Devourer hulls with emergency breaching tools, fought with repair hammers and industrial saws, and used fire suppression foam to short out the machine's electrical systems. "These things are designed to fight armies," Jin Woo reported over the communication system as his team tore apart another Devourer from the inside. "But they don't know what to do with a bunch of humans carrying toolboxes." The mechanical swarm was starting to show confusion. Their perfect formations began to break apart as they encountered tactics that made no logical sense. A human destroyer would charge straight at a group of Devourers, absorbing terrible damage, only to explode in a nuclear fireball that took out half the enemy formation. Another ship would appear to retreat, leading the machines into an asteroid field where human engineers had hidden massive mining explosives. Captain Sojin, coordinating the battle from the Indomitable, was in her element. Her tactical genius had found the perfect enemy, machines that could adapt to any logical strategy but couldn't comprehend beautiful chaos. "Woo Jin, take your fighters through the gap in Sector 7, she ordered. "But don't attack the command ships directly. I want you to hit them with construction lasers, then pull back and let them think about it." "Construction lasers?" Commander Woo Jin replied from his fighter cockpit. "Captain, those aren't even weapons." "Exactly. The Devourers will waste processing power trying to understand why we're using mining equipment in battle. While they're confused, the real attack comes from behind." The plan worked perfectly. While the Devourer command ships focused their attention on the seemingly harmless construction lasers, Major Dong-Sik's squadron of bombers swept in from an unexpected angle and hit them with every nuclear warhead they could carry. Dr. Yoon-hee, watching the battle from her laboratory, was fascinated by what she was seeing. "Commander Tae-ho, the Devourers are actually getting slower. Their reaction times are increasing. They're overloading," Tae-ho realized. "These machines are trying to process tactical data that doesn't make sense to them. It's like trying to solve an equation where 2 + 2 = purple." The tide of battle was turning, but the Devourers were far from defeated. The massive command ships began to adapt in a different way. Instead of trying to understand human tactics, they simply started targeting everything in sight with overwhelming firepower. The human fleet started taking serious losses. The destroyer Busan's Vengeance disappeared in a ball of plasma fire. The cruiser Mountain's Heart broke apart under concentrated enemy fire, her crew fighting to the last moment. "Sir," called the communication officer, "we're losing ships faster than we can replace them. The enemy is adapting to our chaos by abandoning strategy entirely." Tae-ho felt the weight of command pressing down on him. Every ship that died was full of people who had trusted him to lead them to victory. But he also knew that retreat would mean the extinction of the Velothi and eventually Earth itself. "All ships, this is command," he announced to the fleet. "The enemy has adapted to our unconventional tactics by becoming unconventional themselves, so we're going to have to get even more creative." Captain Hee-jin's voice came over the communication system from her stealth ship. "Sir, I've been monitoring the Devourer command frequency. They're using quantum entanglement to coordinate their swarm. If we could disrupt that signal—" "How do we disrupt quantum entanglement?" Sojin asked. "We can't," Dr. Yoon-hee replied. "But we might not need to. Quantum entanglement requires perfect synchronization. If we could introduce random variables into their system." Understanding dawned on Tae-ho's face. "We don't destroy their communications. We fill them with nonsense." Within minutes, every human ship was broadcasting random signals on the Devourer command frequency. Music from Earth's classical composers, poetry readings, cooking shows, and children's laughter filled the quantum communication network that connected the mechanical swarm. The effect was immediate and devastating. The perfectly coordinated Devourer formation began to break apart as individual machines received conflicting orders. Some tried to attack targets that didn't exist. Others began dismantling each other, following corrupted instructions that told them their companions were enemy ships. Colonel Sung Ho, leading a boarding party on one of the massive command ships, found himself walking through corridors filled with machines that were having what could only be described as mechanical nervous breakdowns. Devourers spun in circles trying to follow orders that contradicted themselves. Others had simply shut down, overwhelmed by the flood of illogical data. "This is incredible," he reported. "These things are designed to be perfect soldiers, but they can't handle imperfection. They're literally going insane." The human fleet pressed their advantage. Ships that had been improvising with mining equipment now revealed their true weapons. Nuclear torpedoes emerged from cargo bays disguised as supply containers. Fighters that had been pretending to retreat suddenly turned and unleashed devastating attacks on confused devourer formations. Commander Mi Young had perhaps the most spectacular success. Her ship, now looking more like a flying junkyard than a military vessel, approached the largest devourer command ship while broadcasting a recipe for Korean barbecue on all frequencies. The massive machine, its processors overwhelmed by trying to understand why humans were discussing food in the middle of a battle, failed to notice her approach until it was too late. Mi Young's crew used every piece of mining equipment they had to tear the command ship apart from the inside. Industrial saws, plasma cutters, and simple crowbars proved more effective against the confused machines than any military weapon had been. "Command, this is Seoul's Pride," Mi Young reported as her team finished destroying the command ship's central processor. "We've taken out the primary coordination node. The remaining devourers are operating independently. Without their quantum communication network, the mechanical swarm fell apart like a house of cards in an earthquake. Individual machines cut off from the collective intelligence that had made them so dangerous became easy targets for the human fleet. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. As the last devourer units around Lumina Prime were destroyed, long-range sensors detected something that made everyone's blood run cold. "Sir," called the sensor operator, "I'm reading massive energy signatures from the outer system. More devourers are coming. Thousands of them." Tae-ho looked at the tactical display showing the approaching enemy reinforcements. His fleet had won this battle through surprise and unconventional tactics, but those advantages were gone now. The devourers would adapt to human chaos, just as they had adapted to alien order. But as he looked around the bridge at his crew, engineers turned warriors, miners turned tacticians, construction workers turned heroes, Tae-ho smiled grimly. "Let them come," he said. "We're just getting started." The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Lumina system like a swarm of angry wasps. Commander Tae-ho stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching as his tactical displays filled with red warning signals. The sight that greeted them was worse than anything the alien transmissions had described. Where there should have been the gleaming orbital stations of the Velothi, there was only debris. Massive chunks of crystal and metal drifted in space like the bones of dead giants. The beautiful rings around Lumina Prime were gone, consumed by the mechanical swarm that now surrounded the planet. "Mother of God," whispered Lieutenant Park, the navigation officer. "How many of them are there?" The devourers filled the space around the planet like a metal storm. Each one was the size of a building, shaped like a twisted cross between a spider and a starfish. Their surfaces gleamed with stolen technology from a dozen different species. As the human fleet watched, the machines moved in perfect coordination, their mechanical arms tearing apart the remains of Velothi defense platforms. Captain So Jin was studying the sensor readings with the intensity of a hawk watching prey. Her tactical genius had made her the youngest ship captain in Earth history, and right now Tae-ho was very glad to have her expertise. "Sir, I count approximately 3,000 enemy units in the immediate area," she reported. "But these readings, they're not matching what the aliens told us about devourer capabilities." "What do you mean?" Tae-ho asked. "According to the Velothi data, each machine should be roughly equivalent to one of their heavy cruisers. But our sensors are showing power signatures that suggest each one is now as strong as a battleship. They've been growing." Dr. Yoon Hee's voice came over the communication system from her science lab deep in the ship. Captain, I'm analyzing the wreckage patterns. The Devourers aren't just destroying the Velothi technology. They're learning from it. Look at this. The main screen shifted to show a close-up view of one of the machines. Its surface was covered in what looked like crystal growths, technology clearly taken from Velothi ships. They're incorporating everything they consume, Dr. Yoon-hee continued. Velothi shield generators, Altarian weapons, hegemony power cores. Each machine is becoming a hybrid of every species they've defeated. Major Jin Woo, the fleet's marine commander, stepped forward. He was a big man with scars on his hands from the urban fighting on Titan 5 years ago. So they're getting stronger with every battle. What happens when they get a look at our technology? That's what we're here to find out, Taeho said grimly. The communication officer suddenly straightened in his chair. Sir, we're receiving a transmission. It's from the planet's surface. The screen filled with the image of Elder Silnara, the same crystal being who had sent the distress call, but now she looked different. Desperate, exhausted, her blue glow flickering like a dying light. Human ships, she said, disbelief clear in her voice. You actually came? We received your call for help. Taeho replied simply. How long? Do you have? Hours, perhaps less. The Devourers have broken through our final defensive line. Our cities are being harvested. Our people... Her voice broke. We never imagined anyone would answer, especially not the Deathworlders. Taeho felt anger building in his chest. Even now, facing extinction, the aliens still called humans by that hateful name. Well, we're here now, he said. What can you tell us about their current deployment? As Elder Silnara provided tactical information, Captain Hyojin's stealth ship Shadow's Edge was already moving closer to the enemy formation. Hyojin was known throughout the fleet for her ability to get information that others couldn't. She had once spent 3 weeks hiding in an asteroid field to watch pirate movements. Indomitable, this is Shadow's Edge, came her whispered voice over the communication system. I'm getting close-up readings on the Devourers. These things they're beautiful in a terrifying way. Through her ship's cameras, the fleet could see the machines at work. They moved with deadly precision, their multiple arms working in perfect harmony to tear apart Velothi structures and incorporate the technology into their own bodies. It was like watching a mechanical ballet of destruction. They're not just random machines, Hyojin continued. There's intelligence here. They're studying everything they consume, learning from it. Wait, I'm detecting something else. There are larger units deeper in the formation, much larger. The screen showed massive shapes moving behind the smaller Devourers. These were the size of space stations, covered in weapons and technology from dozens of different species. Command ships, Sojin breathed. They're directing the swarm. Commander Woojin's voice crackled over the communication system from his position with the fighter squadrons. Sir, my pilots are ready. Just give us the word. Taeho looked around the bridge at his crew. These people had families back on Earth. They had every reason to turn around and go home, but he could see in their eyes the same thing he felt. They couldn't abandon the Velothi. Not when they were the only hope left. Dr. Yoon-hee, he said. What did you find in your analysis of the alien tactical data? The Devourers adapt to everything they encounter, she replied. When the Altarians used kinetic weapons, the machines developed better armor. When the hegemony used energy weapons, they created shield systems. Every response was logical, calculated, perfect. Perfect, Taeho repeated. That might be their weakness? Sir? Sojin asked. They adapt to logical, calculated responses. But humans aren't always logical, are we? Understanding dawned on Sojin's face. They've never encountered truly chaotic tactics. Everything they've learned is from species that fight by rules, by military doctrine. Exactly. These machines have consumed the knowledge of a dozen civilizations, all of which fight like civilized beings. But we're Deathworlders, remember? We learned to fight on a planet that was trying to kill us every day. The communication officer called out urgently. Sir, the Devourers have detected our fleet. They're changing formation, moving to intercept. On the screen, the mechanical swarm, began to shift like a living thing. Smaller units moved forward, while the larger command ships retreated behind protective screens of their companions. It was a perfect defensive formation, exactly what any logical military force would expect. "All ships, this is Commander Tejo," he announced to the fleet. "What we're about to do is going to look insane to anyone watching. The Devourers expect us to behave like every other species they've fought. They expect organized battle lines, careful tactics, predictable strategies." He paused, looking out at the enemy formation that filled the space ahead of them. "But we're not going to give them what they expect. We're going to show them what happens when Deathworlders go to war. All ships, prepare for combat. And remember, if it seems like a bad idea to you, it's probably going to seem impossible to them." The human fleet began to spread out in what looked like a completely random pattern. To any military observer, it would have seemed like chaos. Ships moved in different directions, with no apparent coordination or plan. Colonel Sung Ho, watching from the Marine Transport Fury, couldn't help but smile. He had fought in more ground battles than anyone else in the fleet, and he recognized what Tejo was doing. This wasn't chaos at all. It was something far more dangerous. It was controlled chaos, the kind of tactics that humans had developed over thousands of years of warfare on a planet where the environment itself was an enemy. The Devourers, with all their stolen knowledge and perfect algorithms, had no idea what was about to hit them. "All ships," Tejo said quietly. "Attack." And 847 human warships dove into battle like wolves descending on a flock of sheep. The victory at Lumina Prime was only the beginning. As news of the human fleet's success spread across the galaxy, something unprecedented happened. Other species began asking for help. Admiral Kyung-Soo stood in the command center of the newly established forward base on Lumina Prime's largest moon. Through the reinforced windows, he could see Valathi crystal cities being rebuilt with human engineering techniques. The aliens were learning that sometimes the best way to build something beautiful was to make it strong enough to survive ugly times. "Sir," called Commander Nara, the base's new intelligence officer. "We're receiving requests for assistance from 17 different systems. The Devourers are spreading faster than anyone predicted." The old admiral studied the galactic map that filled the center of the room. Red markers showed confirmed Devourer attacks. Yellow ones indicated systems under threat. The pattern was clear. The mechanical swarm was spreading outward in all directions, consuming everything in their path. "What's our fleet status?" he asked. "We've got 800 ships operational, plus whatever the survivors from other species can contribute," Nara replied. "But sir, the enemy numbers in the hundreds of thousands, maybe millions." Captain So Jin, now serving as the fleet's chief tactical officer, stepped forward. Her success in the first battle had earned her a reputation throughout the human forces as someone who could find victory in impossible situations. "Admiral, I've been studying the attack patterns," she said. "The Devourers aren't just randomly consuming worlds. They're targeting specific technologies and resources. They're building towards something." "What kind of something?" Kyung-Soo asked. Dr. Yoon Hee's voice came over the communication system from her expanded research facility. "Admiral, we've analyzed debris from 50 different Devourer units. They're not just adapting to new weapons and tactics, they're evolving into specialized forms. Some are designed for pure destruction, others for resource gathering, and some appear to be designed for travel beyond this galaxy." The implications hit everyone in the room like a physical blow. The Devourers weren't just trying to conquer this galaxy. They were preparing to spread to other galaxies, carrying their mechanical plague across the entire universe. Commander Tejo entered the command center, still wearing the scorched uniform from his latest mission. He had been leading rapid response teams to worlds under attack, buying time for evacuations and gathering intelligence on Devourer tactics. "Admiral," he reported, "the situation is worse than we thought. The machines are learning from every encounter. They've started using hit-and-run tactics, psychological warfare, and even crude attempts at deception. They're becoming less like machines and more like us," Kyung-Soo finished grimly. The communication board lit up with incoming messages from across the galaxy. Elder Silnara's face appeared on the main screen along with representatives from a dozen other species. Admiral Kyung-soo, the Velothi leader said, "We have received your proposal for the Deathworld Academy. Our scientists have reviewed the human tactical manuals you provided. We must admit we are disturbed by some of the concepts." The screen split to show other alien faces. A tentacled being from the aquatic collective spoke. Next. "The human concept of acceptable losses is difficult for us to understand. We have avoided warfare for so long that we have forgotten how to accept sacrifice for victory." "That's exactly the problem," Admiral Kyung-soo replied bluntly. "You've been living in peace for so long that you've forgotten how to fight for it. The Devourers don't negotiate. They don't show mercy. They don't care about your moral positions. They only understand strength." Major Jin Woo appeared on another part of the screen, transmitting from a Devourer-controlled world where his Marines were conducting rescue operations. Behind him, human soldiers could be seen teaching alien refugees how to use improvised weapons and basic guerrilla tactics. "The Admiral's right," Jin Woo said. "I've got a squad of Altarian civilians here who just learned to make explosives from household chemicals. Yesterday they were artists and teachers. Today they're taking back their homes from machines that were supposed to be invincible." Dr. Chang Min, the xenobiologist who had become the Academy's chief instructor, stepped into view. "What we're teaching isn't just military tactics. We're teaching survival skills that every human learns growing up on Earth. How to turn any environment into a weapon, how to find opportunity in disaster, how to keep fighting when everything seems hopeless." The alien representatives looked uncomfortable, but Elder Silnara nodded slowly. "We understand the necessity, but will you teach us without changing us? We do not wish to become violent like humans." "You're already violent." Colonel Sung-ho's voice came from yet another screen. He was broadcasting from a liberated Devourer factory world, where human engineering teams were working alongside alien scientists to reverse engineer captured machines. "Every intelligent species has violence in them. The difference is that humans learn to control it and use it as a tool. You learn to suppress it and pretend it doesn't exist." Master Sergeant Yuna appeared on screen from a training facility where she was teaching alien soldiers. Behind her, a group of insectoid warriors were practicing human-style close-quarters combat. "The sergeant is teaching us something called controlled aggression," one of the insectoid warriors said, speaking in perfect English despite his mandible structure. "She says that anger is like fire. It can burn down your house or cook your food. The choice is in how you use it." "Exactly," Yuna said with a fierce smile. "Your enemies expect you to be reasonable. My job is to teach you to disappoint them." Over the following months, the Deathworld Academy became the center of a revolution in galactic military thinking. Species that had not fought wars in centuries began learning tactics developed on humanity's violent homeworld. The results were immediate and dramatic. The crystalline hegemony, whose peaceful nature had made them easy targets for the Devourers, learned to use their natural ability to manipulate light as a weapon. Under human instruction, they turned their beautiful crystal cities into massive laser arrays that could cut through enemy formations like paper. The gaseous collective, beings of living plasma who had never considered violence, discovered that their ability to exist in space without ships made them perfect for sabotage operations. Human Marines taught them to infiltrate Devourer command vessels and disable them from within. Even the peaceful aquatic species learned to turn their underwater cities into fortress factories, producing weapons and ships in environments where the mechanical Devourers could not operate effectively. But the real transformation was happening to humanity itself. Captain Hyejin, now commanding a mixed-species stealth fleet, found herself working alongside aliens who brought their own unique perspectives to human tactics. "The Velothi taught us something interesting," she reported to Admiral Kyung-soo during a strategy meeting. "Their natural quantum resonance can be used to disrupt Devourer communications at the source. Combined with human electronic warfare techniques, we can blind entire enemy formations." Commander Wu Jin, now leading integrated fighter squadrons, with pilots from 6 different species, had made similar discoveries. The Altarian pilots think in 3 dimensions naturally. Their homeworld has floating continents. When we taught them human evasion tactics, they started using maneuvers that are literally impossible for us to imagine. The galaxy was changing, and the Devourers were discovering that they were no longer fighting the same enemies who had fallen so easily before. Each victory against the machines brought new allies, new techniques, and new hope. Dr. Yunhee's research. Teams now including scientists from dozens of species made breakthrough after breakthrough. They discovered that the Devourers' adaptation process had limits. They could evolve to counter known threats, but truly unprecedented tactics still caught them off guard. We're developing what we call doctrine rotation, she explained to the command staff. Every time we encounter a new Devourer formation, we use completely different tactics. They can't adapt to all of them at once. The strategy was working. World after world was being liberated from Devourer control. The mechanical plague that had seemed unstoppable was being pushed back by an alliance of species who had learned to fight like Deathworlders. But Commander Tae-ho, studying the latest intelligence reports, knew that the real test was still coming. The Devourers were retreating toward the galactic core, where their largest concentrations waited. The final battle would determine whether the galaxy lived in freedom or died in mechanical perfection. All units, he announced to the growing fleet of human and alien ships. Prepare for the final push. Time to show these machines what happens when Deathworlders teach the galaxy how to fight. 6 months after the first desperate call for help, Fleet Admiral Tae-ho stood on the bridge of his flagship as the combined forces of 17 species emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the galactic core. What awaited them there defied comprehension. The Devourers had built something in the heart of the galaxy, a massive structure that dwarfed entire star systems. It was part factory, part fortress, and part something else entirely. Streams of mechanical units flowed from its surface like blood from a wound, carrying the consumed matter of 1,000 worlds. "Sir," reported Captain So-jin from the tactical station, "I'm reading energy signatures consistent with a galaxy-class hyperspace engine. They're building something that can travel between galaxies." Dr. Yunhee's voice crackled over the communication system from the fleet's mobile research station. "Admiral, if that structure completes its construction, the Devourer plague will spread beyond our galaxy. Every living world in the local group will face the same fate as the ones we've lost here." The combined fleet was the largest military force in galactic history. Over 10,000 ships from dozens of species, all trained in human tactics and fighting with hybrid human-alien technology. But even this massive armada looked tiny compared to the mechanical megastructure they faced. "All ship commanders, this is Admiral Tae-ho," he announced to the fleet. "What you're seeing is the reason the Devourers came to our galaxy. They're not just conquerors. They're a plague designed to spread from galaxy to galaxy, consuming everything in their path." Elder Silnara's crystalline form appeared on the communication screen alongside representatives from every major species. The Velothi leader looked different now, stronger, more confident. Her people had learned to fight, and it showed in her bearing. "Admiral," she said, "the Galactic Council has voted. We formally request that humanity take command of all military operations in this sector. We were wrong to call you Deathworlders. You are Lifebringers." The irony was not lost on anyone. The same species that had shunned humanity for being too violent were now begging humans to lead their armies into the most violent battle in galactic history. "The honor is ours," Tae-ho replied. "But this isn't humanity's war anymore. This is everyone's war. We fight together, or we die together." The first phase of the battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human-trained alien pilots flew fighters alongside human veterans in coordinated strikes against the megastructure's defenses. Velothi crystal ships fired weapons charged with human nuclear reactors. Aquatic species used their natural abilities to pilot torpedoes through the structure's water-filled cooling systems. Commander Mi Young, now leading a squadron of hybrid engineering ships, had perhaps the most dangerous job. Her teams had to get close enough to the megastructure to plant fusion charges while under fire from millions of Devourer units. "This is like trying to perform surgery during an earthquake," she reported as her ship shook under enemy fire. "But we've got something the machines don't. We're too stupid to know when something is impossible." Her team succeeded beyond all expectations, using construction equipment turned into weapons and mining tools transformed into military hardware. They carved deep wounds into the megastructure's hull. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Chang Min, the xenobiologist turned military strategist, had been studying captured devourer units with a team of scientists from 12 different species. Their discovery changed everything. "Admiral," he reported over the fleet communication system, "we've found their weakness. The devourers aren't just machines, they're a hybrid of organic and mechanical systems. There's a biological component at the core of each unit, something like a brain or control center." "Can we target it?" asked Major Jinwoo, who was leading boarding parties into the megastructure itself. "Better than that, we can talk to it." The revelation that the devourers had once been a living species shocked the entire galaxy. Dr. Yoon-hee's research teams discovered that millions of years ago, the devourers had been consumed by their own mechanical creations. But somewhere deep, in each machine's core, a fragment of the original organic intelligence remained. "They're not evil," Dr. Yoon-hee explained to the fleet commanders. "They're slaves. The mechanical components are forcing them to consume and destroy. But the organic cores remember what it was like to be alive." Captain Hae-jin, leading stealth missions deep into the megastructure, made contact with one of these trapped organic minds. What followed was the strangest negotiation in galactic history. A human talking to the enslaved remnant of an ancient civilization that had become its own destroyer. "They want to die," Hae-jin reported. "The organic components are begging us to destroy them. They've been trapped in these mechanical bodies for millions of years, forced to watch as their creations consume everything they once loved." The final battle was not fought with weapons or tactics, but with compassion. Human engineers working alongside alien scientists developed a signal that could reach the organic cores inside every devourer unit. The message was simple: a promise of peace, an end to their torment. When the signal was broadcast across the galaxy, something unprecedented happened. The devourers began to shut down, not destroyed by weapons, but choosing to die rather than continue their mechanical existence. The massive megastructure at the galactic core collapsed as its builders finally found the rest they had been seeking for millions of years. The mechanical plague that had threatened to consume the universe ended not with violence but with mercy. In the aftermath of the war, the galaxy was transformed. The species that had once shunned humanity as violent Deathworlders now understood the truth. Violence without purpose was destruction, but violence with compassion was salvation. Commander Hyun-woo, one of the youngest officers in the fleet, received the first new distress signal from beyond the galaxy's edge. As he prepared humanity's response, he reflected on what his people had become. "We're still Deathworlders," he said to his crew. "But now the whole galaxy knows what that really means. We don't bring death to the living, we bring death to the things that threaten life." Elder Silnara, speaking at the ceremony establishing the new Galactic Defense Force, put it more simply: "We sought salvation from our destroyers and found it in those we had deemed too destructive for our company. The galaxy is safer because humanity never forgot that sometimes the greatest mercy comes from those willing to be merciless in defense of others." The former outcasts had become the guardians, and the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had taught the universe a lesson that would echo across the stars for generations to come: that true strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to know when destruction serves life itself. In the end, the aliens had called for help, and the Deathworlders had delivered not wrath but hope. And in doing so, they had transformed both themselves and the galaxy they now protected.